At Adfactors, we call it a IPO is not initial public offer, but it is initial public opinion.
The moment you're going public, you're actually making a mark saying this company is now for decades. Comms needs to come in from day one.
Agency should be brought even before the bankers and lawyers have been brought.
The public should be really, really well informed and educated about what your company stands for, who runs it. It asks it to be shared with it in the form of a very detailed document, which is called Draft Red Herring Prospectus,
Right.
or DRHP.
No, I would imagine that for this document, the PR agency and comms should be closely involved.
Not should be involved, must be involved.
For growth and risk of the company, promoters' wealth is not the only important thing.
Right.
They can
Right.
always go and raise further money in the market
Right.
if it requires. If we are offering services for the world, the companies going public in those are fairly interesting. Anyone who is making for the world.
That's us, making India for the world.
And for the final segment, I have a number of questions, and I look forward to your impromptu, brief response and candid response to all of them. Skills needed for a PR comms professional who wants to get into IPO comms?
Nothing extra than what he knows about PR and comms, except a sense of timing and a bit of respect for compliance.
Okay. Nitin?
I think combination of skills and knowledge, deep understanding of financial numbers, business and their implications, knowledge on publicity guidelines, and the third is people's skills while dealing with your partners for this IPO, which are your lawyers and bankers, and your internal compliance and financial people.
So, understanding financial statements?
You cannot play a role in a successful IPO as a comm professional in a true sense unless you have that non-negotiable IPO.
You also feel non-negotiable?
We have been able to help them because ultimately for us, person delivering the message mostly has those understanding and they are able to come out and
that's Arun's way of saying, listen, even if in-house comm doesn't know the numbers, that's what we are for.
Okay, tell me, how would you suggest a PR or comms person can actually learn about handling IPOs?
Oh, I would suggest that, as I said, if you are ESOPs, means your company is going to get listed. Think, what is your relevant company? Have they gone in IPO? What they have done? And as a comms person, see, what I would not do. So
it's on the job learning.
It's on the job because it's ultimately related. A person in iron and steel, in an IT company, is not going to get a common lesson. So what we think is whatever is the last IPO happened in that industry segment tells a lot.
Nitin?
Yeah, it's a mix of both. I think formal crash course on understanding business statements would be really helpful. You could still go to your CFO also and understand that, but then that may happen in a patchy manner. The second is go to companies which have gone to IPO in a line similar to yours and learn and understand from them the way they went about it. The third, I'll put this in education itself, as I said, know your publicity guidelines and stuff, look at some DRHPs that have been prepared in the past, you'll get a sense of what's coming your way. And then the fourth is, of course, learn as you go along.
Yeah. Tell me one or two tips for comms professionals to handle any misconceptions or rumors.
Yeah, so actually this becomes much tougher versus a conventional. So some of the conventional of crisis management, rumor management are much tougher because your hands are tied because of regulations, there's very little you can say. And therefore, in this case, preparation is the best cure. If you have, before the constraints come in, have a lot of set of external expert, deeply understanding your company, more often than not, they will come to your defense and they will clarify. These are people who range from the conventional financial experts to some of the capital market media to some of the influencers.
Any tips you have, Arun?
I think I'll give it simple. 99% of the times, your crisis and its counter is already there in DRHP. But you need to know it where it is there.
Okay.
And so that's the point of time which we have learned that is hardly an issue. But what we start is whenever we come on the board is a potential crisis audit way back. So we have a fairly good expectation basis the friends are so-called friends, what they are likely to act, and we are able to have a very good idea and paint out multiple scenarios. So I don't see a problem there.
What do you think are the two challenges a PR comms person should be aware of that would come their way?
Oh, his ability to get time from the management is the most important challenge.
Okay.
The management does not give time because they are never ever certain what is the right time. And what we are saying is, in this way, you will never ever get the right time. So our challenge as an agency is always to get time from the management. So,
Nitin?
I think 2-3 of them. One is getting yourself familiar, forming a rapport with this new set of stakeholders, whether new age media, conventional media, capital market, etc. Second, I think it just becomes overwhelming and you need to know how to balance what's important. This is far more overwhelming, especially if you're doing for the first time, versus any other tough roles that you may have done.
Do you think lawyers become a bottleneck, creating a fear about doing PR for IPOs?
In most cases, yes, and it starts from the genesis, which I said. You didn't come in early, etc. One of the reasons you come in early is actually that you try and form a chemistry with them. You understand where they're coming from when they stop you from doing things. So these guys can be either gatekeepers or they can be your partners, right? Most cases you feel like they're gatekeepers because you've not invested that enough time in understanding what they want to do and then how do you sort of find a solution.
Got it.
So they can become partners. In our case, for instance, when we in the run-up, we felt so.
What is your take?
I never had much of issues because that's what experience tells. Because we have learned different firms have a different way to look things, and if that's the way they are looking, how do we take a way out and be consistent with the company? But most of the lawyer advice is fairly good because ultimately they are looking at much bigger risk, and those risks, it may look like a temporary opportunity miss, but those risks are much bigger. So I think all the persons are working for same side. I don't think there is so much of issue.
Agreed. What would be your go-to platform, digital platform for IPO communication?
Digital platform is slightly, I would not like to name a particular platform, but what has happened in last 5 years, there are multiple IPO-oriented platforms which have come up. Some of them are message boards and some of them are reports. So there are, depends on each of the target. However, I would prefer to go to existing media whose target market I know as opposed to the digital media platform. Problem with most of the digital media platform is we don't know who is actually watching them.
Nitin?
I take it in a slightly different way. I think all platforms are equally important, but the one if you can and try and ace is some of these discussion groups on the platform. That's where a lot of real discussions are happening.
Tell me, managing investor expectations, one word that comes to your mind.
Do business in the manner which you have told them that you will do.
Come again, elaborate on that.
So what happens is, like, you have gone out and told who we are, how we do business. Be consistent to that. That's the simplest point, because end of the day, investors are also aware about the market risk and external environment. What they like is you have told them correctly. Let me give an example of a person. So he was asked, when will you be profitable? He said, I don't know. Now, that in one sentence look contrary. You are going in IPO and you are not answering that question that when you will be profitable. But ultimately that company, when it turned profitable, the reception it got was phenomenal.
Honest transparency.
Because in a certain businesses, specifically in the new age businesses, profitability, though most identifiable mark, is most difficult to put a date to.
Come to you now.
Since we're looking for headlines, honest and optimistic.
Oh, yeah.
They're fairly accurate. Right?
Yeah.
We've got 3, we gotta get 20 headlines from this show.
Best sector, next headline. Best sector today for doing IPOs.
There are hundreds of new sectors which are waiting for their place in the market, and obviously they are coming from the new age. And but there are very good businesses which have decided for whatsoever reasons not to get listed. But obviously the best sector is going to be where the research plays a lot of role.
But give me a name of one sector for comms professionals when we are
So
working.
I'll tell you what, I won't name one, but I'll name 2. One, manufacturing, which by the way is very different from what we used to hear. But what's happened in the last few years is that there have been now some small manufacturing firms which have become mid-sized, which are doing very high quality manufacturing which India wasn't known for, and they're sort of the hidden gems. And thankfully today it's all about the macro. The capital markets are also very interested in looking at this sector and valuing it much higher than they used to before. And it all ties in with this confidence now that India also can become a success in manufacturing. So that's one. The second is sectors which were till recently highly regulated but are not, and then there are some great companies being prepared, coming up in that, which could range from defense to aerospace and stuff. So I think these are beyond the trodden path but very attractive.
So I will pick up from what he said, manufacturing. If you are offering services for the world, the companies going public in those are fairly interesting. Anyone who is making for the world.
That's us, making India for the world.
Yeah. That's good. And so to take from that, what do you see is going to be a trend when it comes to IPO comms, future trend?
Oh, we are going to see in the way, if India is going to be the third largest economy in the world, obviously you will have more companies. I won't be surprised that every year we can see 100 to 200 IPOs, at least for next 10 years.
Okay. Any particular trend in communication?
So let me just put it this way, like if it is a question like in 2004 the IPO which I did, and if I do the same IPO in 2024, obviously like the mediums have changed and the speed has changed. So ultimately some of the speed which has changed means to open your cards I take lesser time as opposed to starting much ahead of time earlier. So obviously those things will keep on changing. Technology is going to be always a bigger support, and that is going to dictate how the comms will also have to adopt. But messaging can't change.
Probably a future trend is that comms people will be involved right from beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. That has to come in. But I think the couple that I would say is you really need to embrace the new mediums. And I think a lot of communicators use these mediums in the communication that they're doing on an everyday basis. They don't know how to effectively use those mediums. When it comes to IPO comms, that's one trend that will come in. I think in the second is that do not forget some of the basic fundamentals around trust and transparency. And the way to think about it as a communicator, while pre-IPO till the IPO is very important, but if you actually start thinking about how your company will be looked at and positioned post-IPO, that will hold you in really good stead, because the moment you're going public, you're actually making a mark saying this company is now for decades.
So let's try and bring this to life now for our listeners. If both of you could share an example of a very effective PR or comms that was done for an IPO, and maybe the learnings from that or how you measured.
So, like I'll take the most recent example. In last 2 months itself, we did two very different, interesting IPO. One was for a large company, very large company, and which is Vodafone Idea. It had its own challenges because the stock was listed, it was in futures and options. The trading was going on. The current stock price may be taken as an indicator for the IPO or the challenge. Now, so this is one. Second was, which is most interesting, as I said, that how do you work for the world, is a company named Indegene, who are helping the new age pharma company to reach out to their ecosystem fast. And how do you and there's no peer group like this in India. There's virtually no peer group in the rest of the world. How do you identify the parameters and tell to the investor that judge a company like this or imagine a company like this? Obviously, in both the cases, it was very interesting, and both the issues turned out very successful.
But share some insights from both. What did you do to make it successful?
In Vodafone Idea, the issue was speed, because you had a issue which is already getting traded. So you are reacting hour to hour on what is happening in the environment and start planning your counters accordingly. So it was the IPO from filing to listing was done in 15 days. So, but the good thing was it had already a known name, it had a good investor base. The question was, how do you reach out to the world and say, hey, it's a great offer?
So that is where I'm trying to get to. So what did the agency do? What are those one or two learnings?
What is the one or two learning? Is given the size of the IPO, we activated our pan-India network. Normally, for a 1,000 crore IPO, we may focus on smaller subset of the markets. But here, given the size, given importance, and given need for success, we went out all over India. We used some of the mediums which were in a second category. While we, obviously for interest of time, we used to go to category 1 mediums. We also added category 2 mediums to enhance the reach.
What do you mean by category 2 medium?
Category 2 medium is that how many people you reach. So category Cat 1 will be reaching out to say 60% of the market. Cat 2 will be further 25.
And what is the medium to reach out to them? How does that change?
No. So it's not the medium which has changed.
Oh, you say now you're reaching out to the next lot of people.
Within the same medium, you have categories. So like you take a newspaper circulation.
Right.
You may have a circulation of a newspaper which is 10 lakh.
Right.
And in a normal case, if you are able to do in business and large newspaper, the task gets done.
Right.
But here is the kind of a case where you need to reach out to a publication even at 1 lakh level.
Got it.
So
got it.
Cat 2 is not on their capabilities.
Right.
But in sense of their reach.
Got it. Okay. And what about the second one?
Second one was as I said, was an interesting kind of thing, and we had been working on that for quite long time. And here was the key case that if the influencers understand it best, the message will go out. And there was a lot of appetite in the market because there was nothing comparable to that. So that was much more easier sale.
We used influencers effectively in the second one.
Effectively because it was never understood.
Got it. A case from you, Nitin?
Yeah, actually, so the most successful IPO in which comms will also play a very important role is yet to come, and that will be OYO. No, but more seriously, see, 2-3 things. One is that we should understand that the way IPOs are being marketed and priced in the last 1 year has become very good. We've had some of the highest number of IPOs getting launched Some very unknown small companies to some very big known names. Arun named a couple of those. If you see in the last year, the top 10 IPOs by size, 9 of them are trading above their issue price, the offer price, which basically means things were done right, both in terms of pricing and communicating what they stand for to the market. Therefore, it's very tough to point out a single one, but I think in general in India, the IPO market has evolved. But if you still ask me to take a name, it's someone who I followed because they were also from a startup sector, which was Mama Earth. And the reason why I think it's a good example is from within the startup space, they failed once because there are so many rumors and miscommunications that started happening about the company that they took a step back. And they came back in again. And this time they were careful to get all the basics right. And they had a very successful IPO and they're doing well from there on. Indegene could be another example because in a different sense, because it's a very complex sector, very difficult for people to understand. But I think they did a decent job of demystifying it. And again, that listing is doing well, and that company is one of the darlings and people who follow the pharma sector now.
Arun, you've handled, you said, 700, 800 IPOs. I'm sure there have been multiple crisis situations you faced. Share with us 2 situations which a company, maybe you don't want to name the company, I'll leave that to you, and how did one get around it?
Okay, so I'll give a case of a company, fairly large issue, and a fairly large so-called friend who was out to ensure that IPO doesn't become successful. Last day, 12:30, rumor starts, IPO is getting withdrawn. Sources, international sources. We come to know of the news, we start chasing up, get to the source, and we are able to get the wired sources who initiated the story, getting wired, because till you don't remove a wire story, nobody else will withdraw. Get to the wire and get it withdrawn in a span of 30 minutes.
Okay.
And when you are talking, because the source of the story was Singapore, so run from where the rumor originated, go plug it out there, get an addendum, and then run with that addendum to the world. Because effectively 5 o'clock issue is closing and you have a crisis at 12:30. So the key is what we learned, and after that was very high monitoring. So the crisis, if it develops, we are able to smell it from long. So that's the one tool which we have taken in that sense. Second factors which we have seen is much simpler, because most of the crisis kind of a sense emerge not from what is written in the document, because it's already written, but on pricing perception.
Okay.
They are slightly more tougher. And obviously, what we try to do is to get a sense of the market, but there is always another factor, is market itself is dynamic because of international things. What we are aiming at for success of the issue is not to win everyone. If I am able to win 7 out of 10 people to say it's a good IPO, my task is done. Effectively, it is like, because if I start focusing on winning 10 out of 10, I'll never get the job done.
Nitin, you have a crisis situation to share?
Actually, many.
Okay.
But unfortunately, we're in a position to share here. But after the cameras stop rolling, definitely. And we'll also hear some of the shenanigans that Arun was talking about, but he couldn't name names.
Thank you, both of you, for being here today. I think this was a very interesting conversation, and hopefully a lot of learnings for those who are trying to get into IPO comms.
Oh, I learned a lot from Nitin. And the good thing is, which was happened from some of your questions, have given me strands of thoughts. Let me try to develop them later.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for all the good time that we invested, I hope most of the comms professionals whose companies are now thinking of going to IPO start thinking about it more seriously and much ahead of time. I think that will be time well spent then for us.
I hope you found the insights shared by Arun and Nitin to be of value. I certainly did. And this discussion is just a preview of what goes into IPO-related PR. I'm sure we all appreciate that IPO comms cannot be an afterthought. The narrative must be set, and one of our roles is to simplify the technical language so that investors may easily comprehend it. Every external touchpoint, especially on social media, needs careful curation. Since everything the company does is under increased scrutiny, all communication must be responsible. So while we can't predict the outcome of an IPO, we can surely prepare thoroughly. Wishing those who are on this journey all the best. Thank you.